comfy, grab a comfy seat on the couch, and yeah, I want you to absolutely tune in because we're going to be talking about baby sleep and how we can help them to have a better sleep by using a sleep hack that is taught all over. Now, I'm not here to debate about sleep training or not. That's not necessarily what this video is all about. I'm happy to do a separate video for that if that's something of interest for you. This is going to specifically be tailored for newborn babies and their sleep cycle, so that you are ensuring that they are getting a good quality sleep, which then allows you to rest and sleep as well too. The result of implementing the hack that I'm going to talk about today prevents your baby from getting quote unquote cat naps and waking up because of all these other things that I'm going to hop into. So I'm super excited to be here and to talk with you guys today. I always am excited to go live. It's getting a little late here, so I will not belabor the time. With that being said, if this is your very first time joining one of my lives, or perhaps you are watching the replay, my name is Stephanie Poole. I am a certified lactation consultant and doula, and I specialize in helping first-time moms transition into motherhood like a boss. And what does that look like? That looks like helping you to prepare for a positive breastfeeding and birth experience. So if that is something that you are interested in, perhaps you just found out you're pregnant and you would like to prepare for your birth, then first of all, you need to subscribe to the channel. Become part of the Birth Prep Academy family, because over here, we believe in moms having empowering births. That's number one. And number two, you need to stay tuned and engage, because that is how you jump in to learn those things that you need to know to really feel confident when you are giving birth and becoming an empowered mom. Hello. Please drop where you are joining from. And also, if you have any questions for me, I will be answering at the end. Of course, again, just so you guys know, I'm going to be talking about the sleep hack that all moms need to know for their newborn babies. So if that's something that you to learn about, then stay tuned and let's go ahead and hop in. Now, if you guys have joined my live before, you know I always have my trusty little tablet with all of my notes here. So first of all, let's just talk about why having a sleep schedule is even important. Why are we even paying attention to a newborn sleep cycle? We're paying attention to it because setting a good foundation. And I mentioned before, I'm not here to debate about sleep training, because sleep training is different. We're talking about newborn babies. So one thing I need you to learn off rip is that most babies, when they're newborn, they have to settle into regulating their own body. That's something that they have to become used to, because they are used to you and your body regulating their body. But once they are actually born, they have to settle into that. And so the hack that I'm going to talk about today will help you to give your baby, your newborn, a good sleep cycle so that everybody can literally have a smoother birthing experience. Does that sound good to you? If so, please like this video and share it with another pregnant mom who might get some value out of it. Okay, so the birth hack that I want to talk about is what we call the wake, feed, sleep cycle. Have any of you heard of that? The wake, feed, sleep cycle. And it is exactly what it says. But I'm going to go into detail, and we're even going to talk about how to implement this. What does it look like, right? All right. So when we talk about the wake, feed, sleep cycle, what we're going to do is well, first of all, let me back up and say, newborns really sleep a lot in those first hours and days after, even weeks after being born. Why? Because first of all, birth is a very intensive process. It is no joke. And so mommy and baby are tired in those first few hours afterwards. But also the baby is growing at a rapid pace. Like, you give birth to a baby and the baby is like 7 pounds, but by the time you go back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the baby has already picked up a pound or two, and they might already be at 5 or 6 pounds by before the month is out. So they are growing very rapidly. And so that sleep is so important. Well, what a lot of moms will complain about is like the baby waking up and the baby, taking quote unquote cat naps and not really sleeping well. So I want you to follow this method, right? And implement it as such. And this is literally like what we even do in the hospital. When I am on labor and delivery, well, actually on the postpartum unit, this is something that we actually do with our moms and babies, okay? So your baby is going to be eating, if you're breastfeeding, which I hope every mom at least gives a try, it will likely be close to every 3 hours, right? If you are formula feeding, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. Okay. So when it is time for them, let's say you fed them and now you've gone through the cycle and it's time for them to start waking up. We are going to start with that wake portion. Remember, it's called the wake, feed, sleep cycle. And so in the wake phase of this, you are going to do gentle stimulation to start to wake the baby. Gentle stimulation to just get them stirring, right? You'll notice them kind of start moving. So you'll go over, you will gently, talk to them. They'll hear your voice. And the other thing that we do or we recommend is for you to, start to unswaddle them. So if you're newborn, if you put them down and they were swaddled, go ahead and start to loosen that swaddle. Why? Because a swaddled baby they're warm, right? They are snug. And so they like that. They will continue to sleep if you allow them. They'll sleep a little longer because they are snug. It's close to what they were in the belly. And so you want to go ahead and start waking them and undoing the, swaddle if they have any kind of swaddle on, and just kind of let them breathe, let the air hit them, kind of talk to them gently, rub them a little bit. That will help to stimulate them so that they go ahead and wake. Now, you want them to be fully awake, so you're not just going to wait for them to wake, to start stirring. You're going to go ahead and check their bottom. This is a good time to check and see if a diaper change needs to happen, right? Once you have stimulated them, they have gently started to wake up, you go ahead and you change the diaper, then you're going to sit them up for a minute and you're just going to do very low stimulus type engagement with the baby. So you might sing or just carry on a conversation or do skin to skin. Now is a good time to do skin to skin. You could do that as well. When you have the baby that is fully awake, then we're going to move from the wake part of this hack to the feeding part. So we talked about wake. Now we're into the feeding, and then the next one is sleep. So now that the baby is awake, you're going to offer a full feeding to your baby. Now here's why waiting till they're awake is so important. Because we need for them to transfer those nutrients. We need them to get in a full feeding. Why? Because we need them to get in full calories. We need them to be nice and satisfied after their feeding. As opposed to, and let me explain what I mean by a full feeding. We don't want a baby, like let's say you're breastfeeding and you put the baby to breast and the baby is there for 2-3 minutes. I've gone into rooms and seen this. Like the baby will start out, they'll get on the breast, they'll start sucking, and then they'll immediately fall off to sleep. That is, and then the mom, not knowing, will say, oh, the baby was on the breast for 10 minutes, or the baby, ate for 15 minutes. Yet they fell asleep after the first 3 or 4 minutes, which means that they did not actually transfer those nutrients. They didn't have a nice, deep, nutritive suck. We need that baby to get a full feeding. So that kind of goes back to the first part I talked about, stimulating them and helping them to wake up. Then you're going to offer a full feeding. Now, let me say this. In the hospital, it is advised that a full feeding should last a minimum of 10 minutes on each breast. Well, I would love to see 10 minutes on each breast, but if you have a baby that's really tired, I'll take 10 minutes. So it could be 5 on the left and 5 on the right. But we like to see that the baby is giving you nice, deep, nutritive sucks for a minimum of 10 minutes. Now, also, what I think people don't understand about newborns and feedings is that newborns, they are burning a lot of calories when they are there sucking and eating, and when they and all the things, right? And so that's why a minimum of 10 minutes that is a lot for a newborn baby to be up. A cycle. So we've talked about the wake cycle, making sure they're nice and woke, right? By stimulating them, talking to them, changing their diaper, then sitting them up, doing a little skin to skin, singing to them, whatever your routine is. Once they're up, then you're going to feed them and offer a full feeding. After the full feeding, then you're going to continue to have them up for about 10 minutes or so. And I like to kind of, during this time, jump flat, right? That way you can make sure that all of their food is going down, that they're not having any problems with anything coming back up. You can also spend this time making sure that you burp them, that there's nothing wet, on their little onesie after you feed them, that they're nice and dry. So you're going to do that for another 10, 15 minutes because you want the baby, again, to make sure that the baby has gotten a full feeding and that they're up, they have relieved themselves, there's no gas on their tummies, all of that kind of stuff. Now get this, after you do those things, that baby is going to be ready to go back down for another sleep cycle. And the reason why that is important is because your babies will become overstimulated if they are up for long periods of time. Does that make sense? Babies have to sleep. They have to rest. And so that means that after, you've woke them up, after they have spent time doing skin to skin and all those good things, you offered a full. Then you're going to let them sit up for a few more minutes, right? To burp them, to, again, do a little bit more stimulation in terms of like skin to skin and things like that. Then you're going to start getting them ready to go back down. And you'll see your baby naturally. What you're going to do is look. We tell moms to look for those sleep cues. And let me just make sure I'm staying on track with everything that I wanted to pull up. There's actually something I want to go back and talk about, but that those sleep cues is going to be like the baby rubbing their eyes, the baby yawning, the baby kind of falling off to sleep a little bit, and then they might wake up a little bit. So you are going to make sure that the baby is really starting to wind down. And when you start to see some of those cues, You are then going to go ahead and start getting that baby to lay the baby back down for their next sleep cycle. Okay? Now, that might mean to go ahead and start swaddling them, especially if they're under 8 weeks old. We like for them to go ahead and be swaddled again, and then you can go ahead and put them down to sleep. Why is that important? After you do this cycle, especially in the manner that I just went over, it helps the baby, first of all, helps you not to overfeed the baby. Because what you'll have is a bunch of feedings throughout the day that are short, like snacking throughout the day, instead of just having that full feeding and then being satisfied and then put back down for a sleep. Also, you want to try and put the baby down before they actually go all the way out to sleep. It's a good habit to just get into. Again, this is not talking about sleep training. I'm just talking about establishing good habits for your baby so that in the future, as they get older, they're already starting to be comfortable with going into a sleep cycle without you actually rocking them down to go to sleep. Right? They can start that at a very young age, just getting used to being full, giving you those cues, being swaddled, and then put back down for a sleep cycle as they are falling off to sleep. So you want to keep those things in mind. Now, when it comes to, let's say you run into the problem where, because this is something I wanted to address when I talked about making sure to offer a full feeding after you've woken the baby up. And I talked about how, we'll go into the rooms at the hospital, the mom has given birth, and the baby will be on the breast for 15 minutes, but really only 8, maybe about 3 or 4 minutes, right? Before the baby maybe fell off to sleep. So technically they're still attached to the breast, but they're not really sucking, or if they are, they're very shallow sucks. They're not really transferring any milk at this point because they're pretty much asleep on the breast, which babies do a lot because it's so comforting to them. They're bonding, they're close to you, they can feel your body heat. It just feels good. It's almost like it's the best pacifier ever to be on your breast, but not necessarily be taking in a full feeding. When we see that happen, here's some other tips that I give moms that I want you to try at home. So what we encourage them to do is to start to stimulate the baby. So if you've put the baby to breast, or let's say you might even have a support person or your partner there who is offering the baby, a bottle because you've pumped and now you have this milk. If that is the case and you notice that either they're feeding the baby or you're feeding the baby and the baby starts to fall off to sleep, I want you to start to stimulate the baby again. And one way you can do it is to rub or tickle their feet. Babies will automatically it triggers them to kind of wake up and say, oh yeah, I was eating. And they'll go back to eating. Another thing you could do is to rub their little cheek, and that will get them right up by their ear. That will also stimulate them to go ahead and finish off that feeding. It'll trigger them to wake up and say, oh yeah, I was feeding, But babies kind of fall asleep at the breast, especially newborns. It's very, very common, and we need to make sure that they are getting enough sleep. Ultimately, what this does, it prevents them from then waking up later, catching up on those feedings. So if you don't necessarily implement this hack, the problem that you may run into is a baby who's waking up in the middle of babies are going to wake up in the middle of the night, but they'll wake up fewer and fewer between. They're not getting that sleep cycle that we like to see and that we know babies need. They'll start waking up because they're not satisfied. They've not taken in enough calories during the day to really be on a good cycle and get those sleep stretches. Now, the sleep stretches are shorter in the beginning, but they start to grow as the baby grows. And that is why this particular hack is so important, because if you can get into a good rhythm, first of all, you'll have a happier baby in terms of babies don't like to be overstimulated. So this will keep you where you're constantly following this schedule and able to put them back down. If you've ever been around an overstimulated baby, you'll notice like they're kind of fussy, they're cranky because they're tired and they're like, Mom, put me to sleep. Only they can't verbalize that. They have, their way of doing that is kind of crying and being fussy. You don't want them to be overstimulated. And following this method will help you get into a rhythm and a foundation where you have a much happier baby, because the baby's needs are being met. And so they can rest and sleep and get that much needed deep sleep that's necessary for their rapid growth, right? You have a baby that's satisfied. You have a baby that's stimulated because you're talking to them. You are touching them. You're bonding with them with skin to skin so that, they're satisfied in that area. You have a baby that's fully fed because you're waiting for them to wake wide up and then go ahead and offering that feeding so that they get a full feeding cycle in. And then before they become overtired, you're then, swaddling them back down. And just before they fall into a deep sleep, you're going to go ahead and put them down in a bassinet, right? Or their crib, or, whatever your sleeping arrangement is. That is a happy baby. That is a happy baby. So I want to make sure that this is really, yes, plenty of sense. Oh, good, good, good. Oh, yep. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yes. Well, I'm glad it makes a lot of sense for you guys, because sometimes, let me just say, transparent right here. I had such a hard time with my transition into motherhood because I didn't know. I didn't know this information. And so I had to try and figure it out. But the hard thing is babies can't talk to tell you. So when you have someone that can kind of explain, that's what makes all the difference. That's why you're going to be different going into this pregnancy and this birth. Because now you have heard some things to try. Now you have some ideas to implement with your baby to kind of get you off to a good start. So I'm really glad that this is helpful. And it's funny because I'm watching and seeing about the sore breast. Girl, like that's a whole situation because there's so much stimulation. Go from, very little stimulation to now you got a baby that's feeding every 3 hours. And that does not count the cluster feeds. I did a live a couple days ago talking about when your baby goes through those growth spurts, which is necessary. It can be a lot. It can be a lot. So yeah, it kind of takes time for your breasts to really kind of settle into those feeding cycles. And yeah, they can be very tender, very, very tender. Right, right. At night full feeding because he was heavy and fluffy. Oh, wow. Yes. Oh, good. So he would stay on the breast 20 or 30 minutes. Oh, good. Good, good. Yes, I'm sure he was a very, very healthy baby at 2 to 3 months. But those are good feeds, good feeds. And I will say this, I'm not going to stay on much longer, but I will say this. It is so important to set the foundation for your baby. I know as a mom, I am a mom of 2. Okay. I know as a mom, even when I'm working with my clients and it can get to be a lot. We're working, we are taking care of a lot of times a sibling in the family, right? You might have other kids. It's a lot, but the benefit of what you are doing. When I hear a mom that says, you know, my baby was on 20 or 30 minutes, you know, some people might hear that and think, oh, but that's a big deal. That is a big deal, that you've given your baby so much good nutrition that will last them literally a lifetime. A lifetime. I am always you know, doing research and reading medical journals. And one of the things, I actually was talking to one of our deans of our breastfeeding clinic, and I just was telling her how fascinating it is that breastfeeding has been around since the beginning of time. And yet we are still discovering like all of its benefits. And that is so amazing to me. That's how good it is. So if you don't hear anything else, stay the course, mama, because I know it's a lot, but kudos, because that is no easy feat. Oh, good. Yes. So throughout the month of January, I will be going live every day except for Sunday. Sundays are important to me and my family. So Sundays, I do not go live. But every other day, I am striving to go live in January to just start the year off with a bunch of good foundational information. A lot of it comes from what I hear on labor and delivery from my patients. A lot of it comes from my doula clients that I'm getting a lot of questions about. And so if I can put it in a live, or I can put it in a video that you can go back to and reference over and over again, then that's the goal. That is the mission, to be able to help women even beyond what I'm able to see. And since doing this, like, it means the world to be able to connect with, because I'm used to connecting with like women in my community, or women that I work with, or patients that are assigned to me on my shift, or clients that I've signed and contracted with. But it's different to connect with other women that you may be helping in some shape or form that you had no clue existed before your connection here on YouTube. So I'm super, super happy. Yay! A new subscriber. Welcome to the Birth Prep Academy family. Okay. If you guys don't have any more questions, I always love to chit chat with you guys. It is a joy. I will be back tomorrow. We're going to tackle more information for you. I got to figure out and lay it out in an outline somewhere. So please don't ask me what, but I promise I will be back tomorrow. Please join me. I'm going to try and do maybe around noon. I think that gives everyone time to get up and get their day started. We'll see. We shall see. But until then, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.